So hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video, and today I just kind of want to go over my Nidus Prime build and talk about it a little bit, because why not? So the setup is focused mostly towards solo, steel path and arbitration survivals, which means it needs solid damage but also a lot of survivability. Now since I have my Umbro mods, one rank from the top, it only requires 3 Forma, but if you have them maxed out you're gonna have to add 1 more. Or alternatively, you're gonna have to use an Umbra Forma. So for the stance, I needed a lot of capacity, and I also run melee a lot, so I went with Steel Charge, which is just perfect for this kind of setup. Then, since I hate knockdowns, I went with Prime Sure-Footed, but if you don't mind knockdowns, you can easily run something else. Then I like to run Hunter Adrenaline, which might seem tad unnecessary on Nidus, because you can easily have infinite energy if you play right, but this is mostly for the infested, because they have a lot of energy leeches, and they also have disruptors, which can completely drain your energy. So I like to have this as a backup. Then I like to run Primed Continuity for a ton of extra duration, and this is mostly for Parasitic Link and Ravenous, so I don't need to recast them as often. However, if you don't mind recasting them more often, you can actually take this out. Next on the menu, we have Abundant Mutation. This is an augment that changes your passive to where instead of maxing out at 100 stacks, you max out at 300 stacks, but your Undying now has a 30-second cooldown. This is a pretty easy but dangerous way of getting a lot more damage from your Virulence. Because the damage of Virulence, your first ability, is affected by the number of mutation stacks, so having 300 instead of 100 gives you a ton of extra damage. But it does come with a cost, because if you get downed more than once every 30 seconds, you will just straight up die. If you don't like this though, you can easily take it out and put in a Power Strength mod, which isn't gonna give you as much damage, but it's definitely safer. Next up, we have Adaptation, which makes it so that as you take damage, you become more and more resistant to that type of damage. Following that, we have Steel Fiber, mainly because I don't have the capacity for Umbra Fiber, and this gives us a bunch of extra armor. Then we have Umbra Intensifier for a ton of strength, Umbra Vitality for a ton of health, and finally Strange for a little bit of extra range. This build, like most Nidus builds, will utilize the full kit, so the idea here is that you link yourself to a nearby enemy, you throw down Ravenous on the floor for the regen and the extra damage from the maggots, you ball enemies up with larva, and then you stomp them down with Virulence. Nidus is by far my favorite frame in the game. You don't see him a lot in videos because I mostly use Inaros because I think he's far better as a gun frame or a gun showcase frame. He just doesn't care about anything. But as far as frame design goes, Nidus is still my favorite. He is pretty much the only Warframe that I still run as a pure caster because he can do it. He has the damage, he has the utility, he has the crowd control, he just has it all. It's fantastic. And I think this build really highlights it all. Yes, it's very tanky, but that's because in Steel Path and in arbitrations you kind of need to be tanky to be successful, but even with that he can still do a ton of damage thanks to Abundant Mutation, because having 300 stacks instead of 100 makes a big difference. So if you're like me and every now and then you want to play some of the higher level stuff solo with a caster frame, I would highly recommend Nidus. He is very versatile, and this setup I think works really well for this kind of content. The damage is so good in fact that you can just straight up stomp acolytes out of existence. Yes, it will take a few stomps, but you know, it's a lot of AoE as well, so while you're dealing with the acolyte, you're also going to be stomping the surrounding enemies, which is great for survival. And that's pretty much all there is to say about this build. It's just really good at doing Steel Path and arbitration survivals, and it's of course going to perform really well on the standard star chart as well. So I thank you very much for watching. As always guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video and found it helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.